International Energy Agency has called the next decade the golden age of gas. Martin Houston is the COO of BG Group and joins me now. Martin, many thanks for talking with Reuters. In the context of the shale gas revolution, what are the international consequences, would you say, of America's newfound energy wealth?
Well, I think there are a number of things that we have to think about. First of all, for the first time in many generations, the United States has the opportunity to have energy security on a long-term basis. But I think secondly, it does shift the balance of energy supply and demand on a global basis. So it raises some very big questions. For instance, should or could the United States be self-sufficient long-term in energy?
You call it energy supply and demand. Others might call it the global political scene, global power, and a shift in global power. Will the Middle East be as relevant? Will OPEC be as relevant?
Well, of course, nothing's changed yet. I mean, this is very early days, and of course, shale gas in America is exactly that. It's shale gas in America. I think if there is to be a change, if you like, in the global supply of products, and by that I mean potentially liquids and liquefied natural gas, the question is how much of that gas could be and should be exported from the US to new markets. And I think that remains one of the key questions that we're looking at right now.
What is the investment potential for BG and shale gas?
Well, of course, we're a key player in shale gas already. We have around 1 billion barrels of oil equivalent in plays in both the Marcellus in Pennsylvania and the Haynesville shale in Texas and Louisiana. And they represent a long-term opportunity for us at prices of around $4 to $6 per million BTU. Of course, today's prices are somewhat lower than that. But it also represents an opportunity for us to liquefy some of that gas. And indeed, we will be part of the first export project since the Alaskan project many decades ago, exporting liquefied natural gas from Sabine Pass in America in 2015.
So huge future source of revenue for BG, of course.
Enormous.
Okay. I want to talk to you about Shell cutting back their exposure to European credit risk as a result of what's been going on in the Eurozone, moving into US Treasuries. I mean, is this a trend that we'll see in big energy?
Well, that's an interesting question. Just rephrase the question for me.
Shell has said that it's going to get out of a number of its European holdings, Euro holdings, and shift that into US Treasuries as a consequence of what's happening in the Eurozone. Some might say this is a big trend and we'll see other big energy companies do a similar thing.
Okay, well, look, that's fine. I mean, first of all, we're not a particularly exposed company to the Eurozone. Most of our investments are in 25 countries around the world. I mean, principally sort of in the UK as a starting point in Europe. But our big investments are in places like Kazakhstan, in Tunisia, in Trinidad and Tobago, in Egypt, increasingly in Australia and Brazil, of course, which represents an enormous future for us. So we don't have the same type of exposure. Remember, our business is very much an upstream business. It's upstream-led, so we are where the resources are, which is much more about a sort of global spread.
How about Kurdistan and what others are doing in northern Iraq?
Well, I think one has to say it's very interesting. There is huge potential in Kurdistan, which is quite clear for all to see. I mean, I'm a geologist by training, and of course, this is the first time in a lifetime that people are exploring almost on surface geology.
To what extent, though, are BG's decisions directed by what Baghdad feels, the prospect of civil war in the country, etc.?
Well, of course, we're not in either Iraq or Kurdistan at the moment, but we keep a weather eye on new opportunities, as do all exploration companies. And I think we take a balanced view of the opportunity versus the political challenges we face in those countries. And of course, the welcome we get or don't get from countries in which we do business, some of which we heard about this morning.
Just a final question on Iran and the Iranian oil, that ongoing story. Can the world afford losing Iranian oil altogether, do you think?
Well, that's a very tough question. I mean, the world has a habit of correcting itself from a supply and demand perspective, whatever the challenges. And I think we heard some extraordinarily optimistic views today from the early panel in terms of satisfying the global demand for energy on a long-term basis.
The golden age of gas, as the IEA said, definitely the way forward. You think this is that statement is true and correct?
Well, right in the sweet spot of it.
All right. Many thanks for talking with us. Martin Houston, the COO of BG Group. That's it for now. More from Shell in about half an hour. I'm Axel Threlfall. This is Reuters.